How's it going, guys and gals? My name is Beckett and welcome back to another Beckett Reacts video. I'm just gonna open up quickly by just saying it's nice to be sat back here again after a while. I mean, I know I've been sat here in a few other videos before, but I mean actual sat here for the whole video, not doing like a small intro for the charity video. Like actually being sat here to record a bit of video for something. It's nice. Yes, Beckett Reacts. Today we are going back, as usual, to the world of Jubilee with Middle Ground, and even a similar topic that Middle Ground has done before, because they've released a new video as of recently. How recently? A few weeks ago. And it's a topic that I've touched on before, not only on YouTube, on other platforms as well. And the topic is, literally simply put here, pro-gun versus anti-gun. Yes, we're back here again. I talk about this topic a lot. I like to talk about it. I like talking about it. I address this subject because I guess in a way I'm passionate about it. For those of you who don't know, I live in the UK. I do speak with a British accent, but like I could easily do that and live in America still. But no, I live in the UK and I've grown up, seeing British culture, just seeing crime in the UK here, but also hearing about this numerous shootings that happen over in America, and I guess over the years that sort of made me question and I might want to learn more about this whole topic. My personal belief, if anyone who's seeing this video brand new, civilians should not have guns. End of. I know there are reasons, and I know there are situations where, yes, you may feel safer with the gun, but at the end of the day, it's not necessary. There are several cases and several incidents involving gun violence that if the simple act of removing guns in the first place was taken, the chain reaction would not then continue on. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, I did a video on this a little while ago. There's a comment on that video that there's two comments here that I'll read out quickly before we get into the actual video. One of them being that you should do a lot more research on why Americans have guns, even the basic stuff about why we have guns you don't understand. I did a little pre-research before this, and I came up with a BBC article. Not going through the whole thing, but I'll link it in the description for you guys. But one thing I will point out is a quote that kind of sums up, in some ways, why I feel how I feel. When you have a weapon in your hand, you feel you feel power. You feel like you could stop anything. And then following that quote by the same person, it goes, oh no, actually no. Before that quote, the guy who's been quoting even says, "It's not the guns themselves that are the problem; it's the people holding the weapons." Those two together kind of form an argument as to why it's a bad idea in the first place. So I'll link that in the description, but that's sort of one thing I wanted to point out. The second one, I don't even need to really respond to this. I mean, I'll read it out first and I'll explain why. Guns are already here. They're already out there. So people will find a way to get a gun if they want them. Also, civilians owning guns will stop the government from becoming tyrannical. Because if everybody has a gun, because if everyone has a gun that can get one, the government will be less willing to force the people to obey a law that violates their rights. Now, I don't like to be a person who stereotypes and assumes things, but someone sounds a bit like a Trump voter to me. Not gonna lie, typical Texan Republican. Not a fan of anything government restricting or anything. So I'm not gonna respond to that. I'm just gonna leave that one there because I don't feel that just that last sentence alone I do not feel sums up everything completely. It sums up everything neatly. Doesn't need a response. So with that all done, I know that may seem a bit rushed, but I don't know. But this video is an hour and 22 minutes, and Usually, even the 45-minute ones become an hour in post editing. So, without any further ado, I will leave links. I'll leave that link to that article down below. If you have any if after this video you have you wanna help educate me on what you think and everything else, or you disagree with something, then please comment below or leave a link to some helpful articles that you've seen. Without any further ado, I'm gonna full screen that. I'm gonna put one of my earphones in, and we're gonna have a watch of this video. Let's go.
Things evolve, right? And guns are going to evolve. And if I have the ability to be able to shoot something that is as powerful as a grenade, are you going to be like, that's your right, because if someone can have it, I should too.
It's the Second
or someone
Amendment.
can, and that's the problem. There has to be some restriction. Unless you all believe that we should all be able to have nukes at our homes, grenades at our homes, grenade launchers at our homes.
We should be able to have equal whatever the government has.
There's a well, no, that I can't agree with that one there. Only because there's a reason why there's a reason. I mean, if we're talking like weaponry, there's a reason why they have a lot of stuff they have, and they have people that are trained to deal with those things safely. I think it's a very bad idea if the government has, like he just said, nuclear grade weaponry. It has offered up to the public. Now I know I'm gonna get certain Americans commenting on me if this possibly, but there's a reason why the government has access to classified things. It's because in the wrong hands, it's very, very dangerous. And whether or not you think that the government is the wrong hands to begin with doesn't matter, because in this particular sense, they are the ones who, and I'm just gonna come out saying, know what they're doing. They may not be handling certain things well, I'll give you that, but in terms of weaponry, I feel it's safer in their hands. Call me a spineless government, whatever, if you want, but no.
Welcome back to Middle Ground.
That's it. Spineless government suck up. That's what I was trying to find. Suck up.
My name's John. I'm the host of the Radical Empathy podcast, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Our topic is pro-gun versus anti-gun, and our first prompt is, I fired a gun. If that's true for you.
I haven't, but I want to. Now, I think I said this in the last video. Don't become me hypocritical, because I have a reasoning for this. Do I want to fire a gun? Yeah, I've played enough, like, first-person shooters and games and shooter games in general to, like, I've grown up with those things, and I am curious to see what it's like. But I would do it in a safe environment. I would go to a shooting range. And test out what it's like there. Just because I think civilians shouldn't have a... Okay, yeah, I can know. Now I'm saying I can hear this, yeah. Hello, yes, it's me. Just popping in here just to clarify some things and some of my thoughts that I'm clearly not getting right in my head. I would first like to insinuate that I think part of my amongst the confusion in my head, I would like to backtrack and say that I'm not implying that all Americans don't fire off guns unsafely. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to insinuate that that's what they do, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys probably don't do that. I think, because after a bit of thinking, I think what I'm trying to get across is I do it more for the experience. I wouldn't like buy a gun or own a gun, but I'd go to a range, maybe hire one that they already have if they do that, and just try the experience out of actually shooting one. I think. Because that's ultimately what I'd like. I would like to have the experience to see what it is like at the end of the day.
I don't really don't really care for owning one or anything. I just want to see what I just want to like hold a real one and see what it's like to actually fire a real shot off. So yeah.
For you, please step forward.
So my family does hunt. That's a part of our culture. And when I was younger, my dad, I've gone with him. I've never killed an animal, but I have gone with him for like tracking purposes or, you know, being outside, connecting with nature. And he did teach me how when I was younger. So it's not something I've done regularly, but I have done it.
Same here. I've got like family friends that are very into guns, and one summer they wanted me to have the experience of like shooting a gun. So I tried it. I didn't love it, but you know, try everything once, I guess.
Why didn't you love it?
I just didn't like the feeling. It was really heavy. I was very young, and I don't know. It just wasn't for me, I guess.
I spent a lot of time in the Middle East growing up, so when we were in the Middle East, we would hunt, use guns in general.
I mean, it's again like quite earlier. You don't realize it, but obviously, guns have the ability to take a life, and even if like you're just simply holding it just for no reason, it's still a massive. Like you are holding something that has a lot of lethality within it. So it's obviously it's a small little thing, but it can cause massive consequences. I just wanted to come back in here and just to add a little bit to what I just said there, because there's what that woman was saying reminded me a lot of a scene from a TV show that you guys might probably know I like, depending on how long you've been watching for. It reminded me of a scene from the TV show SWAT. If I can find it, I'll pop it in here. But basically, there's a scene where in one of the episodes, so there's an episode. So one of the episodes of SWAT, I can't remember which season it is. One of the episodes of SWAT, there's a scene. There's an entire plot line in one of the episodes involving the main character's love interest called Michelle, and where it starts out as she's at her workplace, and there's two kids break in and are trying to smashing the place up, and to defend herself and to keep herself safe, she locks herself in an office. She doesn't have a gun to like get out, because I think can't remember if it was inscripted or if it was off camera conversation, but at some point Nichelle and the main character Hondo has obviously talked about it all, and Hondo knows, and Nichelle's told him that she's not a fan of like having a gun or firing it or anything like that. So there is nothing in her office she can use to defend herself or anything. And throughout the episode, she goes through like a lot of she does a lot of thinking and just a lot of processing and stuff, and eventually decides that she wants to try and get a gun, which based on which obviously surprises Hondo, based on conversations they've had, because obviously this is the first time that she's told him that she wants to like have a gun to defend herself with. As someone who obviously is who I am, I was like, oh no, come on, don't cave, don't get one, don't do it. Obviously, that's how I naturally reacted to that. So obviously the episode goes on, and eventually she talks to other people who are other relatives of the SWAT members who have them to get their perspectives on it, and then at the end of the episode, they handle this brilliantly, the way in this last scene. But at the end of the episode, last scene, Hondo brings Michelle into the SWAT HQ shooting range, and he hands her guides her through the process, and
hands a handgun to like get the feel of and have a little go at firing. And the way they do this is brilliant, and this is where what that woman's there saying is what it reminds me of it, because she was that whole episode she was terrified of what happened, and she was really shaken up, and she was like, I want to get a gun. And then when she actually had it in her hand, and when she obviously he holds it out in front of her. She takes a grab. She then holds it, and then Hondo sort of like turns off the safety and everything, and then stands back and lets her do her thing and take her time with it. And there's and she stands there for like a good few seconds or like a minute, not pulling the trigger, and you can see the on her face that she's not sure about this because she knows what she's holding. She has in her hand. She has the power to take her life, and now she's not too sure about this idea at all. And after a few seconds, she says that she can't. It's too much for her. That she can't actually go through there when because Hondo comes back in and puts the safety back on and Jenny takes the gun again away from her. And Michelle at the end of that scene also says that it was the idea of having a gun was nice. It's the thought of it, and that's what that woman's saying. There's what I reminded me of that whole scene, because it just. I mean, I know it's not the same for everyone, but a lot of times I know the idea of having something you can use to defend yourself is very appealing. But the fact is, when you are defending yourself with it, you're also taking unless you're either doing it either way, there is a possibility that you might end up taking a life in doing so. I just want to touch on that because I thought it was a really good sort of example and reminder of that. But if I can find the scene, I'll pop it in just here before I go back. But if not, then I'll just go back straight to the main video.
Hey, thought we'd be heading home by now. What's all this?
Baby, if you really want to get a gun for protection, I will support it. I just want to make sure that you are really comfortable using one first, okay?
Okay.
I can go a week without shooting this thing. But then there's days like today where it's glued to my hand and I have a split second to decide if I'm going to pull that trigger or not. This is what this job is for me. It's instinctual by now.
But it wouldn't be for me.
No. And that's what concerns me. Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
All right, step up here. I want you to get a nice wide stance with your feet. Strong platform, okay? Okay. Now again, you always keep the gun aimed forward. Take it from me, get a nice strong grip. There you go, finger off the trigger. There you go, that's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna take the safety off. The gun is live, and the range is hot. Take a breath. Baby, when you're ready, find your target and pull the trigger one time. So, baby, what's the matter?
If I had a gun this morning, I would have shot Demir. A 14-year-old kid I used to tutor in math. I can't do this.
Okay,
this isn't for me.
Okay, stay there. I got it. Put it on safety. Okay, give me the gun. It's okay. I got it. Hey, are you sure?
I think I was attracted to the idea of a gun because it seemed empowering. But I don't think I could knowingly take someone else's life that way. Now, the power I lost that I need to regain, that's not going to come from anywhere but inside here.
Baby, I so wish more people were as honest with themselves as you are about this stuff.
Yeah, well, when you spend a whole day second-guessing your every decision, imagining all the terrible ways things could have played out. What happened this morning scared the hell out of me.
I know. Me too. But what went down today was just one really bad moment. Baby, we got a lifetime of better ones to look forward to. Together. Come here. Oh, I love you so much.
And when I come to America, my family's had guns. I even have guns, and so I've shot multiple times.
Well, I've shot a gun. I loved it, and my whole family loves guns. So I think that's kind of how the culture was instilled on me.
Yeah. Well, my whole life is guns. I own over 300-400 guns. You know what I mean?
That's another thing. 300-400. You don't need that many fucking guns. I mean, come on. Like, that's a bit mad. Unless it's for like range stuff, then I guess. But I don't know. I always just do get suspicious whenever I, hear something about hear about someone owning that many guns.
I mean, so I shoot them all the time, every day, and I'm also a United States Marine Corps war veteran. I've been to war, so I shot a lot of guns in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fair enough. That's a fair enough reasoning. So he has experience with them and knows the harshness of them. So that makes sense.
I grew up around guns. My father was military and police. My older brother was military and police.
So obviously, I may be against the idea of swinging with guns, but I'm okay with that situation because obviously he's been in the army, he's been in the Marines, and he's experienced all that, everything to do with that. So he knows the damage it can do.
My little brother is military, and I was taught to fire weapons at a very early age because my father believed that if you remove the curiosity from a child about the gun and they're uncomfortable with it, they won't be interested. So he was right. It created gun safety in our home. I did not like firing a gun when I was young, and I fire guns now regularly as an adult. It is about the gun and how it feels and how it shoots and how you operate it. So
that's crazy. I do that with my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't even mess with them.
Yep.
You know
It takes away all the
keep them
curiosity.
all over the house.
Yeah.
They don't even want it no more. Dad, man, that's a gun. Leave it alone.
I was the same. I grew up in Alabama, but my family didn't hunt, weren't military. My dad's a pastor, but they just believed in them for self-defense. And so they were always around the house. We were also instructed very young with firearm safety. And then if my brother is especially...
That was the conclusion I did. Sorry, I'm pulling it up again. But that was the conclusion I did come to at the end of the last video. As much as I think that guns shouldn't be... gun laws should be a thing. Like, I do understand, and I can get behind the whole self-defense aspect. Obviously, I'm of the opinion that if you got rid of them entirely, they would need that, but in the world we live in, I can understand having it as a self-defense aspect. But in terms of self-defense, I think you should only really need... Only really a simple handgun, not like a fully automatic rifle. And if you do have like more than 20 automatic rifles, then at least you only use them at a range, at least.
Actually wanted to shoot growing up, then my dad would take them and practice with them. I mostly didn't want to because I also have never loved the feeling of shooting a gun. Even now, I have a gun. I'm a registered concealed carry permit owner, but I don't love the feeling, to be honest. And you're right, it differs based on the gun. But I'm not a hobbyist. I think it still revolves around the element of self-defense for me. So it's something I think you need to take responsibility for.
Would anybody want to kind of elaborate just on the feeling of firing a gun, whether it's positive or negative, just as more of an experience?
It depends on the gun, but a lot of them kick really heavily. Even I have a revolver that I got that's meant for women. It's about this big, and it's great to carry because it's small, it's easy, it's light, but shooting it sucks. It really hurts. Some of the larger guns, I've shot an AR-15, it's like butter. It doesn't hurt at all to shoot it. So it definitely depends on which instrument you're using.
I think the person too. I got post-traumatic stress, but they told me I got it different. I get a rush. So now when I shoot a gun, it's like, you know what I'm saying? I relieve all the stress, everything about me. I'm having a great time, you know what I'm saying? So it's all on the person and the gun and everything, you know?
We're gonna bring in our disagreeer.
Can't believe you never shot a gun. Why you never shot a gun?
So growing up, my family, we didn't really have a lot of guns around the house. And my cousins or my relatives didn't really have guns, or it wasn't like an outing.
It wasn't a thing. It wasn't
an
around,
outing, and I found a pellet gun. That's the only thing that my father had growing up, was a pellet gun that he hid in his closet away. And it was one day where me and my sister were playing around, and I found it, and I actually, pointed it towards my sister. So it was a very traumatic experience for myself, right, and for my family, to the point where when that was brought up, it was more so like somebody said, education on how guns are not as helpful around communities of color. If there's not a right education.
Where did you grow up? Because
I grew up in New York.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
I grew up in New York, Brooklyn, New York.
Was it dangerous?
Yes.
So you don't think you need something to protect yourself?
Well, not particularly in Brooklyn, New York, because there were already a mass surveillance of police who had guns.
Yeah,
right?
but police, you got to call police. It takes time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We will have a prompt dedicated to this.
Gotcha.
Perfect. It was never a curiosity for me because of that traumatic experience that I had with my sibling and not really having guns around. So I just never had that inkling in my life to even try to go to a range, or even when friends would suggest it, I would be like, oh, okay, good for you, you know, but I don't really have that interest.
It's understandable.
Do you mind if I ask, did you actually accidentally shoot your sister as well, or did you just play
No,
okay.
It was just, watching film and we're playing,
I got you,
right, bad guy or good guy.
You could have made a big mistake.
And it was a pellet gun, and my mom was like, boy, if you point that again, and
your mom knew that you weren't supposed to point it.
Right.
If they would have taught you earlier, you would have known that.
Right, but I think they didn't teach me because we didn't have guns around. None of my family had guns around. Even the BB guns, like
they should have showed you.
It wasn't a thing.
It just wasn't a thing in the house. Your dad just had it. It was in the closet. You might have shot it 2 or 3 times.
Exactly. And my parents grew up and they didn't really go to the range, or none of their friends even spoke about it as well.
Well, and you can't negate the fact that, like, access-wise, illegally in New York, I mean, how much access do you guys even have? Like, only celebrities and, like, very important people can even obtain the right to self-defense in New York. So, I think that's a problem, too, because it's like, how much education did your parents get? Like, how much access did they have? And if they did want to teach them, like, where's there a range? You can't go to a range in New York. Like, they really do strip people in whole geographic areas of being able to access what we got in the South, you know?
They do.
All right, we're going to reset. Next prompt. I'd let my children be around guns. Will you?
I mean, if I had them, no. Yes, you can tell them. And like show them things, but I still think that only goes so far, and there are still times when, no matter how much you show or tell kids the consequences of stuff, they just don't understand. So I feel like I try and keep if I had like kids, I try and keep them away from that sort of stuff until a later age where they be old enough to understand this shit. Yeah, you have to be careful with this stuff. It's not like a thing of, oh, it's an accident, that's fine. You have to be fucking careful with it. So no.
I would just like to point out here that I am not a parent. I do not have any kids, so I am not familiar with the natural behavior that kids follow, so don't take what I just said to heart too much.
Agreeers, please step forward.
Well, I currently have 3 children, ages 10, 7, and 4. I mean, I carry regularly, so they know that the gun is on my person. They never are curious about it. They never really want to touch it because they know what I've taught them, right? And that's what it comes down to, is I've taught them, you can touch this, you can look at it, it's not that exciting. In fact, it's actually quite scary. If you were to use this wrong, you would kill somebody. And that's terrifying to children, right? So they have learned, well, you know how to operate it, so you've got it and you've got us and you're keeping us safe. There's no need for me to need to touch that or look at it or play with it.
I've always felt like that too, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't show the kids when they're young, like if you say, hey, here's my gun, come on outside. You wanna see what the gun do? Come on, put your earmuffs on, let's go. Put your glasses on. Pow! The kids, oh, I don't want to touch that. I don't want nothing to do with that, Daddy. Hey, let me leave that alone, you know, and they learn. You have to show them, you know what I'm saying? You have to lead by example. Basically, you know what I'm saying? Hey, if I'm shooting, I need to teach my son and my kids at an early age so I can know they won't have no problems later on down in life.
If you tell a child, don't touch my gun, the thing that they want to do most is touch your gun. Like anyone that has kids knows, if you tell them not to do something, that's all they want to do.
Rambo, you said you had 300 guns?
Yeah, I got about 300 guns, yeah. And my kids are on them all the time, all day. I got them all around my bed.
You don't worry about them?
Well, first of all, I don't leave them loaded. To operate a gun, you can't just grab it and squeeze it. You know what I mean? You gotta cog it back, take it off for safety. You might have to take it out the holster. You know what I mean? I have one gun that I keep on me for stuff like that. But the rest of them, they're in safes, and maybe a shotgun here. Maybe I might have a gun under the table somewhere, you know, in a magnet. I got a couple guns all over, you know. I got a couple.
Any moment you have a gun pointed at you, ready.
You know what I mean? They all over the house, you know what I mean? I can't lie, you know. But I'm from Louisiana, man. It's a
cultural thing.
It's a culture. Like I grew up. My father had like 30 shotguns in his closet. It's a cultural thing. It's the sportsman's paradise in Louisiana. That's all we do: hunt, fish, shoot.
If I had children, I would teach them in a proper way. I think it's harder specifically because I was born and raised in California. Is it hard in California? Absolutely. Especially because the right to bear and conceal arms is definitely harder to obtain. There are many cases where California just constantly wants to instill laws to hinder people's freedom to exercise the Second Amendment. And so in terms of the school systems and public school systems, I would not trust my children to be trained with a gun. I think that's something for the parents, and that's something that should be instilled by the parents from the young age, like we've discussed, because children need to understand that the right to protect themselves is a freedom and is within our amendment right. And when you are constantly seeing, for example, even in the media, where guns should be feared for, it kind of creates a controversial statement for our simple fundamental amendment rights.
My son's
It may be an amendment right, but it's not necessary.
For example, even in the media, where guns should be feared for, it kind of creates a controversial statement for our simple fundamental...
I mean, they should be feared for. They can take a fucking life. I mean, forgive me for sounding wrong here, but I don't like that. It doesn't sound like a good idea to me to make a kid not fear a fucking gun.
Amendment rights.
My son's been having a loaded gun in his room since he was 10 years old.
I'm sorry, what?
And his
You
room
said
is
loaded?
Loaded. Not one in the chamber, but in the magazine. He knows how to operate it and everything. He has a bulletproof vest, he has a gun, he has everything. Now he has way more. I can't. I'm a Marine Corps war veteran. I've seen death. People could get crazy, and I just had to teach my son, like, hey.
So, that's a hard one, that is. There are a lot of, I'm going to say, ethical viewpoints that could be taken from that. That's a hard one. The one that keeps sort of bouncing around in my head is obviously that he's a veteran, so there is that that's bouncing around and conflicting with a load of different ideas I've got. I'll let the video go for it.
He might have to save me. You can't wait on the police, man. You can call them, but it might be too late.
So I don't have kids, and I don't plan to have kids, but if I did, I would absolutely want them trained, particularly young girls. I think it's really, really important for females to learn to exercise the Second Amendment and to protect themselves. Like, if you want to talk about feminism, that is the only thing that actually makes you equal to a man as a woman. Like, that is, to me, just, it's a crime to not teach girls how to defend themselves. Yep. I want to add one caveat, though, which is I do have another family member I won't identify, but who had some significant issues in adolescence and was having a lot of violence issues and was having some run-ins with the police. In those kinds of situations, you also have a responsibility as a parent, as a family member, to keep dangerous guns away from kids who are showing those kinds of signs. And that's on you as a parent in the home. You know if your kid's not right. You know,
right.
And you have a duty to ensure that they are no longer accessing those and that you're notifying law enforcement, you're notifying the school. And I do think that, like, I don't want to just carte blanche say, like, all kids are fine around guns. Not all kids are fine around guns, so.
We're going to pull in our disagreeers.
So I would say, you know, just this last year, it was reported that among child-related deaths in America, gun violence was one of the main factors.
From 2000 to 2020, gun-related deaths among children and young adults ages 0 to 24 increased from 6,998 to 10,186. Fucking hell. The fact that it's already in the thousands alone. And according to a study in the NEJM, whatever that is, that surpassed motor vehicle deaths, which decreased from 13,000. I can't say that one number. Which decreased from 13,049 in 2000 and 8,234 in 2020. Huh.
That's alarming, right? Even before I knew that statistic, if I ever had kids, and I am planning on having kids, I would not allow my children to be around firearms.
Where did you get your statistics from? Because sometimes I look on the internet, it say one thing, then it say another thing, and so you might be looking at something that might not even be right.
But it is accurate.
Well, it's accurate.
I don't know, I'm just making sure.
It is accurate, but it's accurate because death in children is exceedingly rare. There's very few things that kill them, period. And when you look at the number of things that could kill them, yes, that outranks like drowning or being run over by your parents' car. But that statistic, and many like it, get thrown around to say, like, this is a huge problem that's happening all the time. That's not the reality. It's just that it's a low
I feel like even though if it's like a low probability, we should do what we can to stop it, right?
Like, it is still the truth that is the number one killer of children.
I mean, is there a number of children that you would care about?
Is it suicide killing?
Well, so I worked as a mental health.
Related.
Yeah, so I worked as a mental health therapist, and I specifically worked with a lot of kids too. But yeah, I mean, right now we have 50,000 suicides a year. Of that, 29,000 are from guns. Yeah. Of those, 90% are successful when people do attempt. But when they do attempt with other different things, so let's say cutting your wrist, it's at 6.2%. If we look at things like drug overdoses, it's at like 10, 12%. It's because you have the ability to call the police, you have the ability for someone to find you. And so when it comes to things like having guns around children, you're putting it at a high rate of all of those different things.
The same is true having a pool at your house or having a car that you're driving. So I could ask you the same thing, like what number before we ban these other?
Yeah, I mean, do we have rules on driving?
We do have rules.
How many
we have
rules
a lot of rules on guns, a whole lot of rules on guns.
You don't think the parents should teach them?
But no. So here's a great way to put it. Do you want?
We do have rules. We have a lot of rules on guns. Ban these other. Having a pool at your house or having a car that you're driving. So I could ask you the same thing, like what number before we ban these other?
Yeah, I mean, do we have rules on driving?
We do have rules. We have a lot of rules on guns. A whole lot of rules on guns.
I mean, I get where they're coming from. Obviously, there's a lot more stuff that can obviously kill you. Like, so much stuff can kill you, but, like, there's a point where you can't be protected from everything. But there's some stuff that you can be protected from. And here's the thing, here's the more racist problem in my head. So, driving, for civilians as a whole, it is most civilians, it is a necessity to have a vehicle to get around. Because that is the purpose of a vehicle. To get someone from one place to another. Yes, there are accidents which happen involving vehicle deaths, but at the end of the day, that is not the primary purpose of a vehicle. A gun is not something that is necessary for civilians to handle. Its primary purpose is to kill. Whether it be for defense or not, in this context, it is to kill. So I can see where they're coming from. Yes, there are other things in the world that anything can kill you, but in this case, context matters, and in this case, there was a reason why, compared to, even though both cars can keep and guns, there's a reason why cars and vehicles have more protective, less rules on that sort of stuff than guns do, and why it's hard to get a gun that is a car. There is reasons for it.
Sure,
You don't think the parents should teach them?
But no. So here's a great way to put it. Do you want your kids around drugs, doing drugs? No. But do you want to educate them on them? Yes. So there's a difference between, like, I want my kids around it versus I'm going to educate them. Of course, I'm going to educate my kids on guns. The same way I'm going to educate them around a lot of things that I don't want them to do. But that's what we have to do. There is over 300 million guns in America, so I'm going to have to teach my kid that. And the other thing is, too, is there has to be a line drawn for everyone.
There were 43,163 gun-related deaths in 2023. According to... What is that? I don't actually know what that is. NIHCM. What is that? What does it stand for? The National Institute for Healthcare Management. Right. So according to them, 35% were homicides, 56% were suicides, and 4% were unintentional. 4% unintentional, 3% were police shootings, and 2% were mass shootings. Wow.
Forget everything, throw everything out the door. Is there a number that would draw you to say, you know, I want heavy restrictions? I've had debates with thousands of people over this, and they'll say, like, no, I don't care. It's amendment right, which it's an amendment. We literally added it, and we changed the amendments, and we have many times. So to me, I throw that all out the window and just say, what is that number? What does that look like to you?
I think for me, the number would have to be that you could prove that there are more lives being lost.
I mean, I never thought about that way, but that strengthens my argument for gun laws so much more. It was an amendment. It is not part of the original Constitution. It's something that was added later on, which some could say which makes it as a makes it sort of a less sacred thing than it actually is.
To gun violence than saved.
Oh, that's easy. That's already happening right now.
It's no way. All right, so last year,
yeah,
about 18,000 people were killed with a gun.
Yeah.
They estimate 162,000 people saved their own lives in interactions where they
Wait, you said how many people died with a gun last year?
Around 18,000.
But there's 29,000 just in suicides and guns last year. You're completely wrong.
I said gun homicides. 18,000 or so gun homicides.
And
we're going to separate this out.
Why?
Because suicides are a whole different matter and require different solutions. But we're going to talk about homicides where you have no control in the situation.
I get what I get what she's like. Obviously, this is the current conversation as it stands is talking about sort of gun like. I can't formulate the words to them. I know where she's going with this.
Around 18,000 people were murdered last year with guns.
Yeah.
162,000 are the rough.
Researchers in California. Is that Caltech? I don't know. No, that's. I don't know. Either way, sorry. Researchers at the University of California, San Francisco determined individuals with access to a firearm are 3 times more likely to die by suicide and almost twice as likely to be killed in a homicide compared to those who do not have access.
Estimates for how many people saved their lives last year with a gun.
And
so when
define
you
save your lives.
They were in interactions where the statistics show they would have definitely or certainly lost their lives had they not had a gun to protect themselves. So they were in high-stakes situations where had they not had a gun to protect themselves, it is almost certain they would have been murdered.
I have a question. Did they have to like shoot the gun in order to save themselves?
Yeah, that's statistic. I've studied that statistic in depth, and what
you didn't seem to know it.
No,
they don't always have to have shot the gun. It is whether or not they had a gun. Sometimes they had to shoot it. Sometimes they did not. But still, the statistics about how many people are saving their lives every year dwarf the number of gun violence homicides.
There's a problem with the statistic. I'll make it quick, which is there's no way to say for certain you would have died if you didn't have a gun. Let's say I go in to rob someone with a gun and then they had a gun and I left. That is not a statistic to say you would have died if you didn't have a gun.
Right.
And that's what that study actually shows.
That's not what it showed. It shows they were in interactions where somebody had a gun to their head. They were in a high-stakes situation, and had they not had a gun to defend themselves,
would have for sure pulled the trigger.
They most certainly would have.
How would you know?
But here's the thing, and every time someone makes this comment, it comes back around to the same sort of thing. Guns are not a thing in the first place. That person threatening you with a gun, that person wouldn't have a gun to threaten you with in the first place. That's the whole thing. And before like people like the other commentary I saw that's mentioned earlier in my other video. For people say, yeah, but if you put gun laws in, they'd find ways around it. Look at the, I mean, I don't want to like do a thing of imposing another country's laws against you, but like, look at the UK as an example. We have gun laws. Do we have gun crime? No. Oh, okay, well, probably 1 or 2 cases every so often. Nowhere near the amount of the cases that of gun violence crimes there are in the US. If guns are not available to the public in the first place, then troubled members of the public who for whatever reason want to kidnap or take hostage or do harm to anyone else, they would not have that weapon to be threatening within the first place. I mean, that's how my logic works. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't see how I can. That's how my logic works.
You know that.
The likelihood is very high
No,
that they
how
would have.
would you know that?
And again, what number is fine for you to say you don't have the right to defend yourself in that situation?
I would say that
because I would say I would
people dying a
much
year
rather err on the side of being able to defend yourself, and that's a low ball statistic. It's really around 500,000 to over 1 million they estimate maybe have interactions where they save their lives, but they can't measure that because it's harder to measure things that don't happen.
I had a question for the parents. So you said you're a parent and you're a parent. My question would be like, if your child started showing like mental health warning signs, like maybe they're like showing signs of early serial killer traits or they're being really depressed, what do you think that letting them experience a gun and firing a gun and knowing how to use it, how do you think about that? Like,
yeah, I think that is it's like non-negotiable. First of all, when I say they have access, they don't have access. All of our guns are in safes, right? So they can't access them anyway. But I'm telling you right now that if any of my children showed any mental distress, emotional distress, or had to be on medications, they would have no access to my weapons whatsoever. And I think that is a huge issue. And when you say, here's this huge statistic of how children have died with guns, the issue is going to every time go back to mental health, not the gun. Because if a child has a mental health issue, they will find a way to hurt someone or hurt themselves.
It sounds like
wait, hold on, what do you
issue,
saying,
and
sorry?
when you say, here's this huge statistic of how distress, emotional distress, or had to be on medications, they would have no access to my weapons whatsoever. And I think that is a huge issue. And when you say, here's this huge statistic of how children have died with guns, the issue is going to every time go back to mental health, not the gun. Because if
Is that her arguing for or against?
if a child has a mental health issue, they will find a way to hurt someone or hurt themselves.
It sounds like you're pretty vigilant.
I'm very vigilant, and I do think that we have some issues with parents not taking authority in their home and not being able to recognize your child has an issue. If your child has an issue, you are vigilant in your home to make sure that those guns are secure and safe. If my husband went off the rocker, I'd take his guns from him.
There was a comment made earlier, I think by Hannah, that if there is an issue with your kid, if something's going on, you know. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's true. You really do not always know. And I do think it's better to err on the side of safety. And like Dom was saying earlier, death by suicide with
So, this isn't like a particularly gun-related thing, but just in general, like, you might not know, but that's why you talk to your kids. Like, be slightly in the way that active in their life. Make sure that you're checking up on them and seeing how they are, and try to be open and caring with them. Like, that's why a lot of this shit happens, because the parents, like, I mean, yes, fine, everyone's side of caution, don't have the gun near them, but still, go one better than that. Talk to the kids. Talk to them. Let them know that it's okay to open up with them, up around you and stuff. That's one. I mean, again, I don't know where people teach you this a little bit. Like, I know on the side of caution, not letting them have guns is fine. But that's in general. That's why a lot of kids suffer with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression. It's because the parents simply. They think that just by like checking in and everyone's like, oh hey, how you doing? Are you right? And all that sort of stuff. They think that's checking up on them. It's not. checking up on them in this sort of context is going to them and saying, "Hey, I've noticed something's up with you lately. I want to understand what's going on. I want to understand what's going on. I want to try and help you in some way." Like literally sitting them down and talking to them about it. That's how that works.
A gun is much higher, and you don't always know what's going on with your kids. And as much as you want to, and you want to say like, where is the parent? You don't know what that parent is going through. You don't know their situation. Maybe they, have an inkling, or maybe they don't. Just giving that access to the kid and having it available puts them at a much higher risk.
Right, and I wanted to say even with.
Oh, sorry, I gotta put. You're expecting?
I am, yes.
Yeah, is this your first
You
child?
better hope so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This is my first child. I am expecting a girl, and I don't think that I'm going to build her feminism off of whether or not she can have a gun. I want her to be able to protect herself, stand up for herself.
Oh, she does not agree with that. She does not agree with that at all. I don't think. I do not. Coming to this, I didn't really think about it now because I was trying to process everything at the time. But obviously, that's being said again. I kind of don't. I don't really think it's a. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to have a gun to feel equal to men. Like that's not a very good place to feel equal to in that. I don't feel. Like there's so many other places. I know obviously it doesn't happen in many other places, but there are other places where you can work towards or fight to get towards getting yourself into an equal place in that. I don't think simply having the excuse to own a gun is because, or at least one of many reasons, because that wasn't her only reason. I admit that, sorry, but one of the reasons that for being being like pro gun and everything is for like actually was she pro gun or not? Well, either way, like for one of the reasons for having guns is to it's for feministic views. I'm like I don't feel that's sort of a value that that having that sort of thing doesn't sit right with me. And I say that as anyone who's seen my channel enough or who knows me knows I'm not like one of those guys that doesn't treat women right. Like I say that as a man, or the guy who believes in equality for all and who believes that men should be equal to women. I just don't think you don't need to have a gun to feel equal to a man, and that just sounds stupid. Why? Because I think civilians having guns is a stupid idea. That's unnecessary.
And be comfortable in who she is without a gun.
So if she's very strong and very well trained, and she's a confident young lady, and she's a feminist, and she has a 300-pound man with a gun pointed at her, what do you think is...
Why does this man have a gun?
Well, yeah, okay. So
there's men with guns all over
to clarify, I think, and this goes back to her statistic, which is, hey, it saves people because there's a gun pointed to their head. But that's why we're having the discussion of banning those guns. And if you say,
guns?
well, you're
bad guys are
So you think the bad guys are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to touch a gun.
We gotta reset. We have to reset. Gun violence.
I got a bit hectic. I'm just gonna back up a little bit, so I'm gonna try to listen to that.
Which is, hey, it's
with a gun pointed at her, and she's a feminist, and she has a 300-pound man with a gun pointed at her. What?
Okay. My first thought was to say you shouldn't really be teaching kids either way or especially young girls to grow up fearing for their lives and to teach them how to have a gun to protect themselves. But as I say that as a kid who lives in the UK, a country that has gun laws in place, so I can't understand that. But I still think it's a bit. But as I say that now, I still feel that's a little bit too much, maybe. yes, I know there's a lot of dangers out there, but okay, you know, I can't. You know what? I can't actually formulate my thoughts properly on that one. So I got a lot of things going on in my head right now, so I'm actually gonna leave. I'm not gonna make any further comments there. I'm just gonna leave that and just kind of want the video, I think.
Do you think is...
Why does this man have a gun?
Well, yeah, okay. So
there's men with guns all over
to clarify, I think, and this goes back to her statistic, which is, hey, it saves people because there's a gun pointed to their head. But that's why we're having the discussion of banning those guns. And if you say,
guns?
well, you're
bad guys are so you think the bad guys are gonna be like?
UK. I say it again. The UK. Like, obviously, there must be some way of keeping keeping tabs on it. I mean, yes, we have guns here in the UK, but only for very specific reasons, and clearly we were able to keep tabs on it. Oh wait, we were able to keep tabs on who can have guns and who can't. So why does I mean, so to everyone who says, oh, the guns are still going to be there to begin with, and like even if they do put laws in place, what's stopping? What's different about America where the same thing wouldn't work? And what's different there?
Communities.
I've read before.
Reset. We have to reset.